What's up, everybody? My name is Brian Nichols. Welcome to another one of my videos. I'm now able to make a video. I'm finally over my friggin' cold that I've had for like 3 weeks, so I have a little cough, so bear with me. But I'm back. I want to make more videos, and today's video, I wanted to make this video 3 weeks ago after the Cyborg fight because I was taking notes on things. Let me just say this. I like Bellator. I really do. But granted, I guess every promotion has their faults. Every promotion could probably be better. But there's little things I feel like there's a lot of things that Bellator could change to improve the product. And I was writing some of them down, but I whittled it down to only 5 things, 5 changes that Bellator could make to improve the experience overall. And to me, I feel like they're the 5 easiest changes I think they could implement. Somebody could argue and say they're a little difficult. I'm sure some of them could be, but to me, I feel like they're pretty easy to work on. I mean, I feel like Bellator is a little short-sighted when it comes to their future. I feel like they want everything up front. I feel like they need to look further out into the future and work towards that future. And yeah, some of these things I feel like would help them build towards the future. So let's just get right into it. Let's get into the first thing I thought Bellator could change to improve. First change that I think Bellator could make to improve itself is, number 1, start showing the fighters' names, obviously their last names, throughout your fights. I don't know if you guys and gals have noticed, when you watch Bellator fights, in the very beginning of the round, usually first round, second round, third round, whatever round it is, they'll show bottom right-hand corner, they'll show the clock and everything, and then for about 5-10 seconds, they show blue gloves, this fighter, red gloves, this fighter, which is great, but then they get rid of it. And I feel like that's doing a disservice to Bellator. They're doing a disservice to the fighters that are fighting. Like, I feel like that will because you obviously want to have the Bellator name at the bottom. You want to just push your brand name 24/7, but you want to push the fighters' names too. The Bellator brand, obviously, yes, that's what you're building, but you need the fighters to hold the brand up. And so you need to get those fighters' names out there. You need people to know these fighters. You need the fans and the public to know the names of the fighters, to know about the fighters, enjoy watching their fighting styles and all that. And I feel like just taking the names away. Let me be honest. Like, again, I love Bellator, but I don't watch it as much as like UFC and some of the other promotions. And when I tune into Bellator, there's only maybe top 3 or 4 fights on the card that I'll know, the fighters that I'll know. Outside of that, if they're returning fighters, I don't know them all. And having those names at the bottom helps me remember who they are. And so if I can't keep track of Bellator's fighters, how can the layman person that doesn't watch MMA and who tuned in is watching, So I feel like that's a small little benefit. Obviously, it's a little UI design. You got to modify it, but have it on the screen all the time. I actually have an example for you. I'm going to put my cans on. Excuse me. Let's transition over to this. So here's my perfect example. Aaron Pico versus Daniel Carey, right? Let's play the clip. This is Aaron Pico's latest fight, going in the second round. And there it is. Shows Pico and Carey right down here, right? 5 seconds. If you haven't seen it, here's the finish for Aaron Pico. And that's the end of the fight. Now Aaron Pico obviously is a well-known name, so a lot of people know Aaron Pico. But think about those times where somebody beat Aaron Pico. They may not know their names. Tell me some of the people that beat Aaron Pico. Obviously, some of you hardcores could probably mention him, but Henry Corrales and Boric. Excuse me. Another person, James Gallagher. Who beat James Gallagher? I had to bring it up because, again, I don't remember his name. Ricky Bandejas. Ricky Bandejas is a beast. I've seen him fight a couple times, but I can't remember the guy's name. You have to plaster these fighters' names on the screen. You just have to. All right, let's move on to number 2. Number 2 on how Bellator can make a change to improve themselves. During the fights, and I really like it, a lot of promotions will show the corners during a fight, trying to show you what advice their cornermen are trying to give their fighter, and what Bellator does. And I don't think I've seen this in other promotions. I've seen other promotions will go to one corner and then maybe later fight maybe go show you the other corner. Bellator will actually show you both, which can get a little confusing at times because you can hear both corners yelling at once. But hey, you could almost do what some promotions do during the 1 minute break in between rounds, is make one bigger or make one smaller or make one glow to show you're listening to that one or this one. And I have another clip to show you what I'm saying is, and what I'm trying to get, my point about number 2 is, when they show those 2 cameras, they have the main fight in the middle and then the 2 cameras here for the cornerman. They just show the cornerman. They don't put colors. They don't put a name. Nothing. Nothing indicates whose corner is who. Now, if you're super hardcore and you know, this fighter's coach is this guy, so I know that's this corner and that's that corner. Okay, but again, even sometimes I can't pick up some. There's so many people in MMA now. It's so hard to keep track of everybody, and so I don't know everybody. And I feel like I'm a pretty hardcore MMA enthusiast, and I love MMA and stuff. And there's people that slip by for me. So again, I got another example. Look at this fight again from the Chris Cyborg fight. Let me transition here. Look at this fight between Curtis Millender and Moses Murrieta. And watch, they'll show the corners. Bam, here's the corners. We have the cornerman on this side, cornerman on that side. How do I know who's who? You know what I mean? There's no colors, no red and blue. There's no names, no nothing. I don't know what am I looking at here? Think about all the audio going on right now. I can hear the commentators. I can hear the clapping. I can hear them fighting. I can hear cornerman group number 1, cornerman group number 2. There's so much audio going on. I feel like they need to fix that too. But let's just start with putting the damn names. It's similar to number 1. Change is just put some kind of indication of who I'm looking at here. That's it. All right, so let's go to change number 3. Change number 3 on how Bellator can improve themselves, again, over time. Bellator likes to talk about their main event a lot. And I mean, like, in between every single fight, they got to talk about the main event. Got to talk about the main event. It's like, I get it. The main event is going to be awesome. The main event is the main event. But talk about some of your other fights in between fights. Like, sometimes I especially the Chris Cyborg card and Julia Budd, that's all they talked about was Cyborg Budd, Cyborg Budd, Cyborg Budd. It's like, tell me what else is on the card in between fights. You know, if that's what your goal is. Like, they're doing a lot of things for the military and the vets, which is great. Again, a little repetitive on it. Almost literally in between every fight, it was about Julia Budd, Cyborg, military and vets. Okay, another fight done. Julia Budd, Cyborg, military fights or military vets. Like, change it up a little bit. It just got very repetitive. It got to the point where I was just muting the broadcast and not paying attention to it until the next fight, because it was just the same stuff regurgitated over and over again. Work on new content. Talk about the next upcoming fight. Don't just ignore it altogether. Like, some fights, like I understand some of the lower end fights on the Bellator cards are usually just locals that they'll sign for a 1-fight contract, which is great, but you can still talk about them a little bit. What if they blow the doors off, have a great fight, and you sign him for like a 4-fight deal? You know, get that information out there right from the get-go. Say who they are, just to kind of get the foot in the door thing. Don't wait until 3-4 fights in, then you're like, well, this guy may be great. It's like, talk about that stuff now. Stop talking about just the main event. Talk about maybe just talk about the main card. I feel like they don't talk about the main card fight stuff. It's only basically in the main event and a little bit about the co-main, and that's about it. So I could be biased. I don't know. Maybe it was just the Cyborg one. I'd have to watch. There's another card coming up this weekend in Oklahoma, and I want to watch that. I kind of wanted to go to it, but it's like a 4-hour drive, so I was like, eh. But anyways, that's my thought on number 3. Change of that. It's just switch up what you're talking about. Don't talk about the main event every single time. It just gets super repetitive. Okay, let's move on to number 4. Step number 4 on how Bellator can improve themselves. This one may not be as easy as some of the other ones. But my opinion on this whole old man legendary fights, again, probably of a recency bias, but the Fedor and Rampage fight, like, wasn't that great. You know, Rampage did not look like he was ready, did not look in shape. Nothing against Rampage, but... And it's probably recency bias because I was looking through the list of Bellator fights and I couldn't find one that was similar style where it's just like definitely older fighters in the main event. My thoughts on this is these fights can still be fun, but don't make them your main event. You know, you end on a ending like that. I mean, obviously, yes, I'm sure that brought in great ratings for Bellator, but have them be the co-main. Use them to then propel a champion at in your main event, or a top 5 fighter in your main event that you think's gonna be a star. Like, get that rub from Fedor and Rampage fighting. Like, maybe having the co-main event before that, but if people are tuning in for that, I don't know. What will people stay? Will people come in before that main event and watch the co-main and then the main, or will they watch that co-main as Fedor and Rampage and then stick around and watch the main? I don't know. I don't have the numbers, but I feel like having them as the main event is just not the right call. Obviously, Bellator has this. Everybody has this stigma about Bellator. There's fixed fights and all these old man fights, and yeah, I feel like we need to dumb that down and stick to the fighters that are going to become champions, that are champions, prospects. Let's stop with the old man fight stuff. And if we're gonna do the old man fight stuff, do it sparingly. Number one. Number two, don't have it in your main event. And I don't know. Again, that might be a difficult one for Bellator to swallow, but yeah, that's my number 4 for what Bellator can change. Let's move on to my last one, number 5. The 5th change that I think Bellator could make would be to end the events much earlier. I think the Julia Budd, Chris Cyborg fight, this past event, I want to say it definitely went over midnight Eastern time. It might have been even 12:31 a.m. I didn't look the exact time it ended. And I don't think that's good for Bellator. Don't follow that UFC model and go super late. It tighten up those times. I will say Bellator did a great job. It was definitely prelims, maybe even a little bit into the main card. They would have fighters walk down the ramp and walk right into the cage, because beforehand in the back, I assume right before walking out, they probably wipe down the referees, wipe down the fighters and check them over, and then they had Vaseline on their faces beforehand by the cutmen, so they could just walk right out, walk into the cage. Perfect, saving time instead of standing there listening to the commentators talk about them, blah blah blah. So I felt like that helped. But then when they got to one of the fights where you could see that they were trying to hurry, like the fight went all 3 rounds, and then they didn't interview the person at the end, even though I thought they should have. And then they're like, all right, hurry, let's start the next fight. And then the next fighter comes out, and they didn't have Vaseline on. They weren't checked out, so they had to do it all right then and there. So I thought that was a mistake. And so in my opinion, tighten that thing. Because think about it. Think about MLB. Think about NFL. Think of all these other sports and people that watch their favorite sports teams. Their events go what, maybe 2 hours, 3 hours if they want to watch just their favorite team. But us MMA fans, we have to, what, if you start at 6 p.m. and it ends at midnight, let's be generous with that. That's 6 hours of just sitting there and watching fights. You're not going to get the casual audience to care about your product for 6 hours straight. I'm not going to lie to you. And I feel like tightening that window down even more will just be more beneficial to Bellator. So that may not be an easy one. I feel like obviously that would be a little more difficult. Obviously the only easy way to do that would be just cut some fights out. But I feel like that could be a change to really help Bellator as well. All right, so that's my 5 changes that I think Bellator could make right now to really improve their product, improve their brand over time. 5 easy changes that I think Bellator could do literally right now. Let me know in the comments, like, just even talking about the first change of putting the fighters' names on the screen at all times while they're fighting. Am I wrong? Like, is that a really hard thing to do? Is UI that hard? You can't make that little subtle change in order to have the fighters' names on screen at all times? I don't know. Let me know in the comments. Thanks again for watching. Also, obviously subscribe if you like. Hit the like button on this video. I have more videos coming now that I'm finally getting over this friggin' cold. So look out for those. Again, thanks for watching. Have a good day, and talk to you next time.